We get a good Las Vegas view here. Because the angle, it's a laptop, man. Put the laptop on some books. I don't know if that's good. This could be stupid. I don't know. How drunk am I? I am not very drunk. Let's say that. Not very. See, the problem is, if I aim it so it'll go out the window and you can see the window, then like I'm way in the wrong place. And like the Eiffel Tower is behind me. Like there's no way to win. I don't know what to do. You guys see the Ferris wheel? There we go. If I move way over here, you can see the Eiffel Tower. I don't know. I don't know what to do. It's impossible to get you a good view. The slurring is real? What are you talking about, bro? All right. I'm using D right now. Sorry, we're trying to get it done as soon as we can. This is going to be probably a short stream. I'm just going to be messing around on Bardstone test to reproduce some problems happening on that other level. Is my laptop any powerful? It is some powerful. I don't know what to say as an answer to that question about if it's any powerful. You're gonna have to specify how much power you care about. Okay, so we were doing this thing where we had some stones and they were a little bit messed up. So we're gonna put 1, 2, we'll try 3. And we're gonna take the mirror out of it. Put this on a thing, and we're gonna see what happens when I do this. So like the beams up one. Oops, let's not turn it off. Beams up one. So when I put this, okay, that seems approximately right. Actually. So maybe the problem, I mean, there's a little bit of a visual blip where the top block looks like it's too fast. The results of this are correct. The middle block is teleporting to the left and then falling. The bottom block is pushed one. Top block is falling on my head. That's all correct. European time zone friendly stream. Yes, we do our best to help out the European time zone people. I need to like just be off to the side. I don't know, man. I need to like put this way up higher and then it'll be hard to type. That looks better though, doesn't it? Let me see if there's something. Hello? I don't know what to put the laptop on. Okay, here's like one of these ice things that they put in the room for people who drink wine, which maybe not. Let's try putting the laptop on an ice thing. See what happens. It's probably not going to be. I don't know how I'm going to be able to type. Oh, God. This is bad. This is like that circus show I saw today. Let's try taking the lid off. The lid has a bar on it. All right. This is not a good idea. But this is what we do. These are the lengths we go to for our audience. You know what I'm saying? Oh, yeah. Okay. That's a backdrop. But then this light is kind of reflecting off the window. How's that? You know, next time I come on a trip, I'll just bring a spare keyboard. Hey, Sean, what's up? I'll just bring a spare keyboard, and then I could type and aim the camera. Like, the stupidest thing about this is a $4,000 laptop, all right? And the freaking webcam is just embedded. At least it's not one of those stupid laptops that has it in the bottom of the screen. But, like, in order to aim the camera at a reasonable angle, you have to, like, whatever. Just put a freaking little camera stock on the laptop. It'll cost you $5. You can gladly charge people $20 for it. I don't know. Laptops are terrible. They're past the point of no return. Buying one of those foldable Bluetooth keyboards. Yeah, if I'd had the foresight, like I was sort of thinking maybe I'll stream on this trip. If I'd had the foresight to do it correctly. Let me turn off this other light. It seems like it's also. Now my room is very dark, but you get the highest quality image quality. Yeah, I can't really have my head in the frame. I mean, this is not going to work because my laptop is so ridiculously high. Let's try it, but this is stupid. Stream on LSD. Well, not tonight. Maybe they should use a wider FOV and a digital crop. That would work. I don't know. I don't know what the resolution of this camera is, but I feel like if they spread out the FOV, the pixels might be too big and chunky. Hotel water. Do I ever get scared of getting sniped when I'm standing behind a window? I personally do not have that fear. We might have a good water show. Can you guys? Yeah, you guys can see the water, sort of, if I get out of the way. Oh, we might have just had one. Maybe they don't do it this late at night. I don't know when they stopped doing the fountain. Maybe one happened behind me while I was doing all this. Okay, so this is reasonable. So we need to find out what was causing the unreasonable behavior. So we're gonna try actually this. We're gonna delete that guy. It's under there and rotate it. Okay, I guess we'll put this on the ground. Okay, so the point is, like, oh, okay, that didn't do anything. And the reason it didn't is because the square by the endpoint beam is occupied now by this, which was just the thing that I left there. It's unoccupied. Whoa, okay, so that's actually correct. So we don't, on level load, we don't check entities for falling because we assume that you won't save things in a non-static state. But as soon as I move, these things fall, and then it looks to me like they're both falling to the same position. Which makes sense because, okay, that's what was going on with the other level too. So here's the problem. We used to move things one at a time, and we changed to this transactional system. And the problem with the transactional system is both these guys decide to fall at the same time. They both check and see that the square is empty at the same time, and then they fall and move themselves there at the same time. So they're both occupying the same square. And this is not good. Let me prove this. So I'm loading the gameplay state in the editor, and I'll select this and move it, and I bet there's another guy under it. There is. See? So I'm not sure what to do about this. We could make falling not transactional, but that would break some puzzles because there are times when things are required to fall in sync. And there's weird, bad, invisible results that happen if that doesn't work. So B, I mean, we kind of want it to be transactional, but we kind of don't want it to be transactional. I'm not sure what to do, except to say that if we're doing a falling teleport, I mean, there are similar issues even with not falling. I bet, you know, it might be broken just in 2D. So like, wait, how do I do it? Maybe it only happens with falling, but like anytime where you're moving multiple simultaneous things, well, okay, if you have clones. So let's try this. Can't see my mouse cursor right now. Oh, because it's not the editor. So we're loading the level. We're gonna get rid of all this stuff for a minute. Why? Because, okay, we're gonna put this guy down. We're gonna make a clone. So this one is 16527. We're gonna make this guy clone of that guy. All right. So, okay, so they move at the same time. So now it's kind of undefined. If I move left, we're both trying to move to the endpoint. I bet we both just can't. Yeah, okay, that's a problem. That's a problem with the new way we factored the movement system. So now I've got two clones on top of each other, and it's not good. You know, in the previous versions of the system, it was that, you know, it was sort of random who would get there. I think we need to make it sorted by order. Like the only order that makes sense is by how far along the beam you are. So I guess with endpoint beams specifically, we want to reserve spots. But, you know, this can also happen, like say you've got a double beam and you've got two crossing at one point, so something's going to fall 4 squares or move 4 squares and another one's going to move 2 squares. It is still possible. So we need a thing. So we have this procedure called can go, right? So here, and even though, so when we're going to fall or when we're going to move, we call can go. And what, I guess the thing that I'm thinking about how to handle this is that even though people don't move at the same time, you know, we're going to be reserving, or we're going to be queuing our move, and then they all get committed at the same time. So can go should check the pending but uncommitted moves to see if there's anybody in that square. I think that's a reasonable solution. Do people out there understand what I am saying? And do you have any better ideas? Or is that that seems like the right juice to me. Here, you can have a Vegas view while I read chat. Shouldn't there be a recursive check instead of only checking if the next block is free, also check if it's not already falling? Now, those two blocks are independent of each other, if I understand your question. Why wouldn't just pushing a thing into the endpoint beam have the same effect? Because you can't push when you're in an endpoint beam. You could use the magic wands, but if you try to push when you're in an endpoint beam, you will move and the object will not, because you're teleporting around the object, right? At least that's the behavior in the current system. Hopefully you're okay with that. I mean, the game didn't have pushing, so but you know what I'm saying? We can definitely set that up to show it. Like, you know, if let's get rid of the clone. Well, I mean, we can undo this, right? But I can't push. Like, if this is here and this is here, and I do this, I try to go left, I'm just going to skip around it, right? The only case in which I wouldn't skip around it is if that thing was occupying the endpoint, and then I could push it, which I think we at least had a draft puzzle about, right? So, like, so I can't. Oh, this thing is teleportable. So when I push it, it teleports to the same square that it's in. If it's not teleportable, I've got so many versions of self loaded. If it's like one of these things, whoops, hit Control V and not Control C. If it's one of these things, I believe then I can push the beam. Yeah. Oh, it's blocking the beam. Anything that is teleportable also, or non-teleportable also blocks the beam. Anyway, endpoint doesn't push makes sense. Okay, good. Wow, the mic is really bad. Yeah, I'm sorry. I only paid $4,000 for this laptop. It can't have a good mic. That's not allowed. It also can't have a good screen or a good keyboard or a good trackpad buttons because we live in the year 2020. All right, so I'm going to go back to this clone situation. Hey, Sean, I don't know if you saw some of the cool levels we have with endpoint beams, but they're pretty nice, actually. Like when you can reflect endpoint, we have these cool levels that I showed, or I fixed one of them earlier today because the replay was broken, where like you have the endpoint beam reflecting upward, so but then you block the endpoint so that somebody can sort of like hover on it, right? Because they're standing on the thing that blocks the beam. And as long as you keep that constraint, like people can walk in the air, it's pretty awesome. You didn't see them. Let's take a break and show that right now. I mean, I don't like to, we haven't officially announced the game, but like Sean's on. So I'm just going to look up the level name. I don't remember the level name. Side, oh wait, is it? It had a really long level name, and it's one of my levels, which is bad. Let's look it up. You'll get the idea. Like I have a sequence of 5 or 6 levels. Let's just look for a really long level name here. It had swapper in it. It was endpoint something swapper. Endpoint suspend direction swapper. Okay, let's go to that. So this is a pretty hard level, but we can go kind of back to the tutorial-y levels. Let's see how far back it goes. Okay, so like this one, so you know, obviously I can turn the beam on. Well, I did that soon, right? So the character at the bottom is the Skipping Stones character. She can put one object, but not multiple objects. And at the top is the thief from Heroes of Sokoban, so she can pull. And, you know, so first of all, this is just like a tutorial level. So, you know, I just sort of push this here, and you can see that it's like in the... I should put that viewpoint on the other side because this doesn't look like a mirror from either. That's a mirror, anyway. So, you have to pull the thing on, and then the thief can actually go across because that square is blocked, right? So she can't fall because falling would be along the direction of the beam, and the beam is blocked. We should have a graphical effect down at the endpoint representing a failed teleport. We don't have it right now. Anyway, that's an early level. And then here's like a more involved situation. It's been a long time since I played these. Oh, so you have to kind of get across two gaps now with one mirror, so you at least have the cognizance. Oh yeah. So here it's like maybe you didn't realize that it's supposed to be blocked. So you try the thing. You just think you could walk in the purple beam, so you try it, and it's like, oh, wait, I'm down there. And of course, I go off to infinity and disappear if I try to go back. So that doesn't work. But you might realize, like, okay, I can use this, and now it's blocked, and she could go across. But then you kind of need to do this one, and there's no, like, there's no thing to block it. But you have to figure out that you could, like, body block, right? So, but that's how you win that level, and then it gets appropriately more. Yeah, so here's one with 3 mirrors and a bunch of, oh God, this one, Jesus. Okay, let me see if I remember. So it's obviously, again, one of these situations. So you have 3 mirrors, so you can get 3 beams going at once. And I don't remember the point of this one. I think we're going to do. How do I turn the beam? Oh, it's a pusher up there now. It's not the thief. So, okay, so I pushed that prematurely. It's a little hard to see from this angle, but it's too low. So it won't hit. So I don't want to push it yet. I don't want to put it down yet. But we could obviously do this, and then push that. And now that beam will hit that thing and reflect up. So like, oh, and the point of this is, so these crystals will not break the beam, but this stone block will break the beam. And I'll spoiler the puzzle for you right now. The spoiler is you have to use the stone block before you get to the end of the thing to be under a mirror, because if you try to drop it on one of the mirrors, it'll break the beam. Like, so, okay. The point is you need to use some of these to like block the endpoint beam so that you can then stand on top, right? If I try to go down, I'll fall, right? But if there's a block on it, I won't fall, right? So like these things, because they're crystal, so the crystal block, we developed this visual language. The crystal blocks will, they're affected by all kinds of magic, right? So not only do they not block the beams, they're affected by the beams. So that's endpoint, right? Because it endpointed and there's something in the endpoint, I can't go there now, so I can go across, right? But if I hadn't done that, I guess I showed it earlier, but okay, great. If I try to use this to do that, this is like an inner lifeless thing, and it just blocks the frickin' beam, right? And so the puzzle is kind of, you have to use that at the right time. So that, and then I can use this, for example. Oh, no, you have to use it first. Because it's not ever affected by beams, so it'll block no matter what. So you have to do a little bit of like Tetrising of these guys. Use that one first. It's not totally obvious to me how to do this. Because if you ever push these things together, so this character can only push one object. So if you ever make like a 2x2, of which we already have 3, because that crystal there is also not pushable. If I ever make a 4, you're screwed. So like, you have to somehow. And if you push something, oh, I guess there's 2 there. That's not. Wait, what's going on? Why is my keyboard not? I lost focus on my window for no reason. I'm not sure. Okay. If I do this, I can get this down there. That's probably okay. I don't think those beams will wreck my life yet. And then I can like get this over here. And like, oh. Okay, so I dispose of that first. That's the puzzle. And then once you've done that, spoilers, everybody, for the game that you're not going to be able to play for a long time. Once you've done that, things can proceed in a gradual manner, right? So I can get there. Uh, and then also, I can push these right? Also be, you learned that in previous levels. So that one can go down there, and then this can drop. And then, oh yeah, that's the next block of it. It's of course not as easy probably to figure out how to do it as I said. So that's, oh, I never grabbed the extra viewpoint. Sideways viewpoint. So that's that puzzle. And so they get more sophisticated. And then there's a monster in this one, or two monsters. And then this one is like there's three mirrors in three different directions and three beams pointing three different directions. And there's annoying constraints because you need to get you need to get across a lot of gaps. And if you use, like a south-facing beam along the north wall, you can't ever push it south again. And of course, you get that usual solving constraint off that. And then if you manage this one, here's one without that helping column. And this one is solvable too. This is the one that I fixed today. So like, why is that not working? Why do I keep losing focus? So this is a low frame rate. It's a debug build solution of that level. Is 3 beams overkill for this puzzle? Using 3 instead of 2 just makes the initial Sokoboning at the top harder. Maybe. Yeah, I mean, I haven't. So, what happened is I just did all these puzzles in 1 or 2 days, and the ramp might not be good. Like, it does seem like maybe there should be more of a ramp. Or maybe it's just that this puzzle has too much fat. I don't know. I kind of liked it for this because I wanted it to be. I mean, the trick is that this stone back here is like screwsy, right? And the fact that there's a lot of Sokoboning, I think I felt like that's what makes this good. Because you want it to be so hard to use at first that people just aren't gonna. I don't know. We'll think about it. But anyway, so that's one of the funny things. Like, if we ramp it some more or we add some more variants of these puzzles, it'll be like 7 or 8 puzzles that riff on this one idea that just happen to emerge from like, hey, we're adding 3D to these items that we already had. So Sean says he's really amazed at how we found such crazy interactions of these independently designed mechanics. Dude, we haven't even. So the thing about this game is we won't be able to ship the game that explores all the low-hanging fruit even. It's just too much. It would be too many levels, too much gameplay code for us to write, and too much level design. Like ensuring that these levels aren't broken and exploitable takes a lot of work. We still have to do that for a lot of these levels. I keep finding exploits. But yeah, I mean, this is one example of one fun thing out of many fun things. And I would say we kind of got lucky. I do want to take a little bit credit for picking the initial games that make it good, because you could pick games that don't combine as well. But yeah, I mean, it's also just you can't foresee, like when we pick the games, we haven't done the work yet of designing all the levels, so you can't really foresee how much interest is going to come out of the combinatorics. It's just a hunch, right? So I can take a little bit of credit for having a good hunch. You guys can take more credit for having designed the games. And then, yeah, I mean, you could imagine scenarios in which we felt like we had to design new objects in order to make it interesting, but that's not the case at all. Like, we don't need to add anything. And in fact, I think there's going to be a little bit of underrepresentation. So like some colors of beams are probably going to be underrepresented simply because we can't do everything. Like we have to do beams. There has to be lots of beams in the game. But some colors may not get as much exercise as others. What else? I don't know. We just have to see. It is just so many levels. We collect any sort of stats from play times to detect and fix possible exploits. No, that's not generally how we do things. We are going to have playtesters sort of go over the game with a comb and try to find exploits. If we ship a game that has exploits, I guess we would try to patch them. This isn't a game like The Witness where changing the world at all breaks the entire game. Because levels are isolated here, it's much easier to do that. So we might try to do that. But to the question, I guess the implicit question, like would we collect player data in order to try to notice exploits? I don't really know. I'm not very crazy about all the player data collection that's happening right now. I would like to just release a game that just says we don't send anything over the network, so you can feel good about playing our game. I don't know, though. I'm not sure what's the right choice there. Give credit for hunch. You also designed the interactions in general as 3D. That's true. I mean, we have done a fair amount of work. There are some interaction choices that I'm not sure are the right ones, and we may just have to, ship the game before we ever really know if they were the right ones because it's so big. But yeah, no, it's good. I'm having a fun time working on it, even though like 2019 has been kind of a bummer, just because I don't know if you saw any of the past few streams, but like I've had to rewrite the basic movement code yet again because my nth idea about how to do it like wasn't right. And now we're going back to one of the earlier things, one of the most simple versions that I rejected because it would have all these problems, but it turns out that these problems that it has are easier to solve, cleaner to solve than the problems introduced by the other ways of doing things. So now, over the past couple streams, I rewrote it so that when you move, there's a difference between your physical position, which is the gameplay relevant position, and your visual position, which is like interpolated and animated. Now, when you move, the physical position moves instantly, and the animation catches up, which is what I did first. And also, it's sort of the thing that you would expect straightforwardly. And, there's lots of problems that happen there with like things looking like they happen at incorrect times and whatever. And it just seemed bad, so I tried other ways of doing it. But ultimately, it's the right way to do it for this game. So, we just got done mostly rewriting the gameplay system to work that way. We are down to, so we have our automated tests for all our levels. We're down to 23 failing levels out of 326. That's not actually everything because this doesn't count the promised games or Mirror Isles because those are big and we don't have automated tests for them right now. Or not Mirror Isles, Skipping Stones. We have all the Mirror Isles levels in there. So, like the promised games, I sort of think of them like there's a variable number of puzzles per area, but I sort of think of every screen in a promised game as one level. It's roughly equivalent, right? So, every promised game is like 32 levels by that count. So that's another 96. It's going to be a big game. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, these are the levels that are failing. Some of them are failing due to just timing problems in the playback. But most of them, I believe, are failing due to gameplay mechanics that aren't quite
they're not right anymore since we changed the movement code. One of those that we fixed today was a purple beam related thing. But we've got a bunch. But I think some of these, so like this one could just be timing, that one could just be timing, that one could just be timing, etc. So we're just going to go through and try to get it down to 0 now. But it's a bummer to do that because it's like, man, I'm rewriting this thing for the nth time. Everything is broken for like weeks, and by the time I get it back together, it'll just be what it was before. And I'm trying to work on this compiler, and we're working on this other game that we haven't announced, and like, oh my God, it's so much stuff. And I need a vacation, right? So it's been a bummer, but it's coming out well. It's coming out well. And every time I go back and play levels like this, I get reminded of how fun it is. And that's what makes the hard part of game development go better, right? As you see like, oh yeah, this thing we're making is really good. It's going to be fun. You can't imagine getting correctness right without implementing instant movement in a discrete world. Well, I foolishly thought that I could do that. But it became so crazy. And the crazy thing that we had still, like, it was super exploitable. Like, you could get around the rovers, for example. And, like, we even though there was supposedly programming to prevent that, you could. And, like, it's just bananas. Like, so we just went back to the simple thing. And now, do I not drink? I don't drink much. I had a drink with some friends tonight, but it was one drink. What am I in Vegas for? Mostly just to take a little bit of a break. Like, I like taking little work plus relaxation breaks where I go somewhere. I'll like work on my laptop a little bit during the day, do some fun things. So we've been seeing some shows. There's a lot of really good shows in Las Vegas to see, and eating in nice restaurants. And it's a good little way to spend a few days and working on the game here. How much concurrency do you deal with in making this game? Not very much. Like, we have the main piece of concurrency right now is just the audio system, but that's been ported from game after game after game. Like, this is an evolution of the audio system that was used in Braid, right? So it's like not that complicated, and I'm used to it, and it's no problem. How much of that is a selling point of the new language? Well, I want to do some stuff that is helpful for parallelism. I don't like to say helpful for concurrency because I think the word concurrency as it is used today is a weasel word that allows people to ignore efficiency, which is almost always the real reason you want to be concurrent. Like, if people tell you there's other reasons they want to be concurrent, it's kind of bullshit. Because it all does come to, even if they say, well, I want my UI to be interactive while a computation is happening. Well, that's also efficiency, because if your computation was infinitely fast, you wouldn't care, right? So, yeah. Anyway, do I feel spread out too thin? A little bit. I've got a lot of pans in the fire. Wait, what's the saying? Something's in the oven. Too many cooks spoiling the broth in the pans in the oven in the fire. Anyway, I've got too many of those. But it's all stuff that nobody else is going to do if we don't do it, and so it's fine. It's a lot of work. Witness was a lot of work, and we just did a lot of work, and we finished the game, right? None of the individual projects we're working on right now are as big and scary as Witness. Like, this game is big. It's turned out to be a lot bigger than we thought in terms of number of levels and whatever, but it's more tractable because each level, not every level is like an individual isolated thing, but like the ones that I just showed are, and the vast majority of the levels are. Unlike Witness, which is a big connected world, and when you have a big connected world like that, it's much harder to contain changes from rippling out and affecting other things. So, yeah. I have a bun in the oven? No, that is not what I meant. Anyway, we want to do things that help with parallelism, but because this game is like our reality check of what we really need to work on and make good, and we haven't cared that much about parallelism yet, we haven't done any of the advanced things. Like we have a library routine that wraps mutexes in a relatively OS independent API. So you just say like, hey, do a mutex and whatever, right? But that's not high performance parallelism, right? High performance parallelism is like fences and locking instructions and your language helping you know that certain variables are not accessible except in a certain thread or unless a mutex is held or something to prevent data races, right? And we don't really have anything that you wouldn't have in C yet in terms of helping with that. But we plan to eventually. It's just we're doing things as we can do them. Too many irons in the fire? Is that? I don't know. I forgot my analogy just in the middle. Is it really irons in the fire? Like, what's wrong with leaving irons in the fire? They're not going to melt. They're just going to stay in there and get hot if you don't pull them out. Anyway. So we were working on a bug. This level Bardstone test. It just turned into my generic test level. Okay, this thing. Maybe we can fix that tonight, even though I'm tired. I'm supposed to meet these guys in the morning at 9. It's going to be at least 2 before I go to bed. But let's see if we can't just decide that. So when we go to, whoops, not that. Let me make sure the camera's still weird. You guys can't really see a lot of Vegas right now. I don't know how much this is worth it, but I need to get some drone cam of a drone flying around, and we'll just pipe that into the window. Okay. So this can go routine that I was talking about can check. There's a thing where it says, hey, let's search. This found array is things that we find at the position that we're seeing if you can go to, right? So what we're going to do is also check. See, the thing is, we can't just say, is anybody moving there? Because like if a lily pad is deciding to move there, we don't want it to block us. I'm going to try something sneaky where I look through the pending but uncommitted moves. Like those are moves that are definitely going to happen. They just haven't happened yet because they have to happen at the same time. So I'm going to say add them to this found array. Find uncommitted moves at position. We need the entity manager for that. Yeah, so we have manager, pause, star found. We're just going to do that. And uncommitted movers, because we're returning the entities. Okay, so let's look for commit physical moves. That's this thing. That'll just remind us what all the arrays are and stuff. So, get pending move position already searches the array of pending moves and tells us who's there. So we want something kind of like that, but we want this. And we're saying movers. We don't want to just return an entity because in principle it could be more than one. Like if there's a lily pad carrying a guy and they both move into the square, you could have two things. So found is going to be a pointer to an array of pointer to entity E. And we're not going to return true or false. We're just going to find anyone. So we're going to look through the pending physical moves. And we're going to say if wrapped, because we have wrapping levels, wrap distance of, I guess, manager proximity grid. I don't remember. I kind of need to standardize my arguments to these functions. Anyway, so there, between pause and move.entity.position, no. Okay. Not move, because move entity position has not been updated. That is the whole point of why we're looking here. We just have a delta. We don't store. All right, this is kind of. I don't like it. I don't like it. That's in case that goes across a border. Let's just say robustness. I don't like the fact that we aren't saving the final coordinates in the unsorted. Oh wait, that's an unsorted move. That's not the right thing. Dude, I'm looking at the wrong struct. I was looking at this down here. That's not the right one. No. We want pending physical move. I think that's an entity manager. Hope somebody on stream caught that. Okay, there we go. New position. Yeah. Okay. Fuck that. Move dot new position. Right. If that distance is less than 0.5, which means so things are supposed to be on integer values. So this is just a way of saying like, are they within floating point error of each other? If that's true, array add found. Right, okay. That's it. That's the whole function as far as I know. I mean, we could say if unique. We could say if unique. And I think we should, because something could like already be in that square, and then for some reason somebody pending moved them to the same square. I'm not sure that that's disallowed. So it might have already been found by the proximity grid search, or you just don't know what the caller is going to have in that array already. All right. Well, who knows what that did when I left shift my pointers. Yeah, it's not left shift. Okay. That didn't fix anything. Why not? Well, I guess we'll find out. Oh, I know why. It's because this whole idea of adding this to the found list is not that great, because the problem is down here, we just check entity position. Maybe we don't. We're not really checking the position in here. We're just doing some logic. Oh, geez, we ignore the guy if it's a pending. Oh, come on. Yeah, okay, this idea isn't going to work. Okay, I kind of want to go to bed and think about it. So here's the problem. This thing is assuming it's pending a physical move because we're moving in the same transaction, which is true. But it's assuming that if we're moving in the same transaction. Okay. This is assuming we found the guy in the proximity grid. If he's in the proximity grid and he's pending a physical move, it's probably because, he's moving as part of our transaction, so he's leaving the square we found him in, so we ignore this, okay? But we shouldn't ignore this if we grabbed him because it's a pending physical move in the first place. So I assume what's going on is this is tripping and filtering the guy out that we carefully put in. We could run the debugger and check that if we want. Let me catch up with chat for a second while my subconscious mind thinks about this. I'm the only guy who actually programs in an editor? What do other people use? Use GUI to program things. Oh, I see. Well, that's a bummer. You're not sure it's possible to have things moving in different directions. It may be more stable, consistent for endpoint movement to check whether there's something else that would want to move to the same square. Yeah, okay, there's some problems though, which is just there's multiple times when endpoint movement gets invoked, and it's unclear what's the best place to check. So like falling is one way if it's vertical, right? But then regular character movement is another way. There's actually two cases in regular character movement that have to get checked too. But then also there's other stuff. So like double beam has the same problem. Like in one move transaction, you could double and then either triple or quad beam people to the same square, right? It's not that easy to set up in most levels, but we actually have some levels that would cause that to happen. So I want to do something general. As to whether it's possible to get things to move in different directions, it is. So like you could imagine the bard from Heroes of Sokoban charming a bunch of people and moving, right? Those people will get teleported if they're in a beam when the bard causes them to move. And you could have your beam going horizontally at the level where people are moving, and then turning and going down by bouncing off a mirror. And so one person at one level could be moving sideways, and another person at another level could be entering the beam and falling because the bottom of the beam is, the beam is vertical and the bottom of the beam is not occupied. I think it's not that easy to get people moving in different directions, but I don't know if that's the case that you meant, though. I think this is the right solution. It's just there's some code here that assumes it's different. What do I mean when I say transaction? Well, okay, like if you want the rules of your gameplay world not to be violated, and it's a grid-based world, then say you're standing in one square and you're pushing a block, right? You don't want to say, I'm going to move forward and occupy the square where the block is, and then the block's going to move forward, because there's a brief time when you and the block occupy the same square, and that could break things, right? So you want to move you and the block at the same time. That particular case that I said doesn't seem that important, but there's versions of that that are pretty important. Like there's gameplay things that are pretty cool that you could make happen that can't happen if it's not transactional, or like things that you feel like you should be able to solve but that don't work if it's not transactional, because there's a moment when something bad happens. Do you understand how the transaction scheme works? It's pretty simple now. It's literally just there's certain parts of the gameplay code that move guys. So like falling is a loop that moves all the falling guys, And then at the end of the loop, it commits that so that everybody falls their square. Everybody who was going to fall that frame falls their square at the same time, right? Which doesn't necessarily guarantee that much because things could start falling at different times because there's timed moves. But if you do something in gameplay that causes a bunch of characters to like no longer be supported during the same move, they will then be falling at the same time and they'll fall in sync. And that's important on a few levels, right? So falling is one such loop. Just like pushing a row of stuff, that's a transaction. So all the things move at the same time. Charming characters and move them is a transaction. Something that's moving, like a lily pad that's moving with a stone on it, the lily and the stone move at exactly the same time. Assuming you handle something like 2 clones 2 apart in a double beam. Yes. Well, the old movement system handled that. I assume we can try that right now, but I assume that the new system is fine with that. The default behavior right now is to see that it's not blocked, right? But we also do some things. So, PuzzleScript, I actually don't know what PuzzleScript does, but it has, I don't think it's like a good solver in PuzzleScript. I'm not saying that to diss it. It's just, I feel like it's probably not. But, PuzzleScript has some kind of a solver situation. This game sort of tries to emulate that in a way that is hopefully good. Like when you move, it picks the people along the closest line of the move direction to go first, although that shouldn't matter anymore since moves are instantaneous. I don't know. Anyway, so here we have a double beam, and here if I move these guys left, this, don't let the water go. So it's just endpoint that's broken due to the current model. It worked fine before, doesn't work now. If you're concerned about this sort of thing, is what mechanism you're using to handle it. It can be handled by sorting, except when there are multiple directions of movement. If there's wraparound. Yeah, so I'm going to have to see how it shakes out when we get to using this new movement system when we get to the most complicated things. But for something like lily pads, we already had to deal with, I came up with that weird contrived example of going multiple directions in a purple beam. I don't know if we have levels where it's probably possible right now. It's hard to set up, right? Whereas like lily pads and skipping stones, they have to move in sync in order for gameplay to work, but there's no defined order for them, right? And so we had to do something, and that's what this unordered move thing was that was at the bottom of the screen. So unsorted moves. So what happens with lily pads is they actually decide where they're going to move by negotiating with each other, I guess. But if they're carrying something, that thing could be blocked by a wall that the lily is going under, right? So you can't guarantee that the things stacked arbitrarily high on a lily pad are also going to go with it. So we do this unsorted any move, and we just go n squared over the array, and somebody goes first, and it's arbitrary. And if they succeed, we take them out of the array. If they fail, we leave them in the array because they might be trying to move into a square that somebody hasn't moved out of yet, right? So we keep going until nobody can succeed anymore. I guess that's actually not correct. If you have a pathological case of like 4 lilies each moving into each other's square and all of which are carrying other things, then this will fail. But we just won't design that level, I think. Anyway, so if we have to move to a system like this for other things, we could totally do it, right? These aren't as strong. When I say transaction, these are not as strong as database transactions. We don't roll these back, although my previous movement system had sort of had rollback. We don't do that here. So transaction here is really atomicity and being able to name things. So there's like a transaction ID, and that ID can be used to know whether things are related to each other or not in the way that they're being moved. I didn't think that was feasible because you're imagining one transaction over all the moves in one frame. Well, I'm not sure what you mean. Okay, you know what? This is actually kind of broken right now in the new movement system for the same reason. We just didn't have a test that exhibited this. But for the same reason as the thing we're working on right now, which is that if two people try to move into the same square, CanGo will tell them that they can. That won't normally happen with lily pads because lily pads themselves don't go into the same square. Like their control code doesn't let that happen. So things stacked onto them won't, except of course that if they're affected by beams, they could, right? So it's the same thing with teleport beams or whatever, making you go into the same square. So we're going to handle that. You know what, though? This has been a good discussion, but it's 2 a.m., so I think I'm going to sleep, and I'm going to fix this maybe tomorrow. And the fix is just going to, I'm not sure exactly what's the best way to do it. It's going to somehow involve, well, we're going to have to do something about this. Is pending physical move. Like we say, ignore this guy, don't collide with him or try to push if he's pending physical move. We really want to say that someone who is pending a physical move can block you if the reason we found them is via the target move. I feel like I should do something simpler here. Maybe we shouldn't do it by putting it in the same array. Maybe we should just have a post check. The reason I put it in the array is because there's logic here. Like, okay, if it's a wall and you're in a through beam, you can go through it, which is also true. Well, a wall you would never find in a pending physical move because walls don't move. So, this is about being able to push rovers if you're strong or something. Or actually, this doesn't actually push it yet, but it says it puts it in our push array, and then we test later if we can push that much stuff or not. And you want that to be checked, I guess. Yeah. So maybe what we do, maybe this found array gets post-processed into something that says why we found the thing, or maybe there's a runtime only flag on the entities, right? And everyone found this way doesn't have the flag set. Everyone found this way does have the flag set. And then, when we do this pending physical move check, we say if it's pending the physical move and the flag isn't set, then ignore him. Otherwise, we don't ignore him. That might not be the only reason this is failing, but that would definitely make it fail. So that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a little note here that says fix me so that we don't compile. And that's it. It's bedtime. I think I lost the chat. I don't have any more chat after what Sean said about. Let me restart the Twitch thing. Are there any final questions about what we have been doing here? Hold on, I'm not on my channel. Okay, there we go. Chat was fine for you guys. It was not fine for me. Because I don't have two screens here, I'm using the iPhone Twitch client, and it just dies sometimes. It's stupid. Everyone's just listening. Okay. Oh, okay. Well, great. Any final questions before bedtime? You would have updated the movement in very small steps to tweak everything by setting different velocities to entities and react to collisions between entities. That's a kind of a thing you would do for a game that has a continuous idea of space. But the thing is, this is a puzzle game where the fact that things occupy grid squares is very important to being able to reason about the puzzles and solve them. So that kind of a thing, it works a lot less well. I was trying actually to do something more like that would then quantize back to grid squares on the back end, but it wasn't a good way to do it. I was going to go, like I had this, what they call come to Jesus moment, right? Where I was like, if I do it this way, how confident am I that I could ever make a robust game, even with like a year of just hammering on these gameplay issues? And I was not confident that that would work. And that's what caused me to fall back. Wow, they turned off the Eiffel Tower, dude. I guess they only leave it going all night on like Friday, Saturday nights. Turned off the Eiffel Tower. All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming by. And I'll see you later. We might do a stream tomorrow. Thank you for watching.